Welcome back to Morning Prime. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's just another one. Today is a very ethical day because each and every break we take, we just dig that hole deeper. Like, how can we get deeper into this ethics thing? Yeah. But, Prof, now we were talking, I was listening to Esab talk about creation of employment, the opportunities, housing being, a right for Kenyans, which actually are points that are making sense. And I've heard the president, as you are reiterating, raise these issues in regards to this proposition. But for starters, it was termed unconstitutional. Yeah. For starters. Yeah. Now we are building around it. This particular bill that has come in play, the Affordable Housing Bill 2023. How do you process this particular move by the government?
Yeah, so first of all, let me comment on the unconstitutionality of the house levy, and now called the house tax. In fact, there was a clarification in Parliament because we said it was proposed as a house levy, then eventually it was passed as a house tax. So Justice Meoli clarified that a tax is a form of levy. So if they said levy, now they just gave the specifics of it. Anyway, those are now semantics in court. Now, to go to the unconstitutionality of it is that I read the Constitution very well, and if you find the section between Article 3 moving forward up to 3.5, there's the talking of any right should not be discriminatory. And the only part of the Constitution which can salvage you against anything is to prove that something is discriminatory. There is no any article that goes against that. There is no any article saying that you can discriminate under these circumstances. For example, look at Okiya Mtata's one on, is this a money bill? And if it was proven to be a money bill, then the whole Finance Act would have been unconstitutional because there was no concurrence between the Senate Speaker and the National Assembly Speaker and the Executive on it, because Senate never debated the Finance Act. So the judges found some clauses to disapprove him that this was not a money bill. So this was brilliant. I think from my legal team, we did a great job. I was able to slay the house levy thing, and I'm sure you could have seen in live broadcast our work. But then after we went for lunch celebrating, we came back to disheartening news that it has been put on stay on order. And I think that I told the judge that there is no any basis to give stay on order for something unconstitutional, because what is happening is that the judiciary should uphold the Constitution from going through any damages. So if you give stay in order for us to continue doing something unconstitutional for 45 days is like, for example, I'm stepping on your feet and I'm being told to continue, or you are living in sin. For I'm sure my brother here is a Christian. I tell you, just stay on sin for 45 days. But Jesus might return within the 45 days, then you're going to go to heaven. So I was concerned about that seriously. So constitutionality, I am completely not happy with the judiciary. And judiciary in this country is one thing. It's unfortunate we are preparing to go to an election, and NADCO never recommended a surgery because surgeries can be done and the disease reoccurs, isn't it? So we need another surgery in the judiciary to remove these elements. Now, going back to the practical side of it, which is the most hurting thing, Noah, look at this equation. Environment of high employment plus environment of high the depreciation of the shilling, environment of high taxation, environment of low income, environment of loss of jobs. If you add this equation together, the country is in suffer. So we are losing. In fact, has been survey done by FKE, Federation of Kenyan Employers. We are losing 189 jobs per day, but these are not casual jobs. These are white-collar jobs. Now, when my brother here says that the house levy is to create jobs for the people on the bottom of the pyramid, it is it's not a reasonable thing to say. If we want to advise the president, they gave us the example of Singapore, isn't it? Singapore, as you mentioned, has the lowest taxation in the world, also lowest government expenditure in the world. What you need to do is lower expenditure, which I've given a formula for it. I've talked about everything in government and told him this one cut here, transportation. We spend 96.8 billion shillings a year to transport the Kibaki Ruto cabinet. And the numbers are there. They are having 1,625 fuel guzzlers. For example, Gachagua has 30, Musala has 15, all ministers each have 7, and all the PSS have 5 each. The Economic Council has 5 each. And they travel with them. And remember how they use it. To be able to service a car from Toyota Kenya is 300,000 shillings per month, because for every 5,000 you service them. So multiply by 1,625.
Yes.
Then these people, for example, when Gachagua is in Mombasa, 30 vehicles take him to the airport in Nairobi, isn't it? Then 30 run on the ground to pick him from Mombasa to the hotel. Then bring him to the hotel. Then he flies back. Then 30 pick him from the airport to his house. You understand my point?
Yes.
So that one for me, you can cut. How many seats do a human being need to sit on 30? And every 30 vehicles, 5 seats each, isn't it? Those are 3 times 30, isn't it?
Yes.
How big is some human? So I'm trying to say you can cut on the government expenditure, lower the taxation,
yes,
and then create jobs, because when the economy is, actually, if you add the other figure of the issue of the interbank rating, which has moved from 4% from September last year to 11%, money is not circulating. It is just stagnating the economy. So according to me, if the president left the house levy, which is the reason why we are losing jobs, isn't it?
Okay.
We can actually be able to create more jobs. And also when you set the payslip people, because the government is very good with the divide and rule, isn't it? They say, you payslip people do not want hustlers to get jobs, isn't it? But you know what's happening? Paul, your payslip is keeping so many people eating. For example, you have a house help, isn't it? You have a watchman, isn't it? You have a groundsman. You have Mama Mboga you buy Mboga from. So that your payslip is also keeping people working. So if you lose your payslip for one employed person in the middle class who loses a job, for example, if you earn between 250,000 and 500,000, if you lose your jobs, 800 people lose livelihoods. That is the economic denominator I'm talking about here. So if you look at 189 people losing jobs per day, if you look at them taking care of around 800 people in different ways, you have a watchman at home, you have a driver there, you have a border here. If you add all that number together,
yes,
you discover many people are suffering, and you take kids to school, you're educating somebody, you're sponsoring somebody. So according to me, the multiplier effect of us losing jobs does not work. The worst part of it is that the money they are collecting, they are incapable of even building the houses they are talking about. Because when I was there, I was interviewing them, they say they are getting 93 billion collecting house levy per year.
Okay.
These cannot build the 500,000 houses in a year. They are saying they are going to put in the stock market. Then they say they're going to put it as a guarantee fund. Okay. Then they don't know how to use this money even. So according to me, Mr. President, my advice to you, we don't want you to fail, because we are not like opposition who prays you fail so that they can become relevant, because we have lost leadership here. The president is being misadvised by some people, isn't it? And then opposition prays they fail so that they become relevant. But for us as citizens,
yes,
we want to succeed today, because the child not going to school is not going to school today.
Exactly.
Some are not eating today. Some are dying of hunger, clothing, basic needs are suffering today. Give us a Christmas gift by withholding all these things in the Finance Act, so that Christmas can be predictable. Because Christmas with 300 shillings per litre of fuel, no one will travel unless you have the legacy of the taxpayers' money.
Okay. Paul.
Yes.
Today has been a very ethical issue, and the courts kind of pulled that move, saying, this levy, it's unconstitutional. And now the government has decided, let us create structures around it. So the 1.5, they have introduced, there is it shall be managed. They've put structures essentially around this, and it's in the first reading already. From a governance perspective, the way so far you've observed some of the introduction of levies, taxation, just Finance Act 2023 and how the government finances itself, has there been the goodwill for the good of the country, where there is ASAP's position of, if you're making something, then contribute for the larger good, and also an element of the leadership looking at themselves in the mirror and say, how come when I'm flying, my guzzlers are on the ground to pick me up from there? Why can't we cut on this and that to make it easier for the taxpayers of this country? How do you assess that?
Well, I look at it from the perspective, I think I will pick what you call the parental principle. So the parental principle says 80% of the outcome you do is dependent on the 20% of the money you have. For instance, 80% of your budget, everything you spend, your expenditure, can be funded by 20% of the money that comes in for you. So I think the government can look back, and I agree with Prof. We need to cut on the ledgers and expenditure of the government. I think that's really, really huge. I think we have a bloated cabinet. We have legislature so big, like one of the largest in the world. I was seeing a comparison between Kenya and California, and maybe in terms of even the output they're giving. So I think the challenge that has been there, we've been having a lot of what you call, I'm forgetting this term, like the balkanization of different counties. So that aspect of dividing counties and having many leaders has brought many people to have that aspect of, let's have this culture of praising leaders, let our leader have this kind of money. But I think this money could be shifted differently in terms of thinking, and say, how can you give people, maybe from a perspective of a servant, how do we serve these people? How do we add more value to people? And that, I believe, can add more value to this country in terms of servant leadership than thinking about you're in power, it's our time to eat, let's bring our people together. So I think that has been a challenge. But from the governor perspective, I look at it from maybe the agency theory. And this agency theory is like, we have entrusted the government or the people in government to help us manage this country as our agent, as a citizenry, as the people who really vote. But at the same time, we want our benefits. So we don't give these people the value they need, because also we have ulterior motive of benefiting because you have the knowledge and the expertise and the latitude to do what you want to do. So I think it's a challenge for us, and people being elected, it behoves them to raise up to the occasion and say, you know what, even if I'm eating, because they say eating is a must in this kind of a scenario, why don't they help other people?
I know they're laughing because they're like, oh.
That's in terms of the leadership context right now. Yeah. I'm saying if it was me, it was different.
Yes.
But why don't they give it to other people and say, you know what, let's benefit other people? If you're an MP, why don't you make sure the most vulnerable people in your constituency get the school fees? It's not just a campaign tool, but let me just help that one person.
Yes.
And when that one person is transformed, it will transform the entire county, it will bring the largest difference. Okay. So I look at it from that particular angle, and I feel the government actually is trying to sanitize that kind of an aspect, but I think it's still not constitutional. Okay. And because perhaps, maybe my perspective would be, I think the judiciary has a challenge in the sense of the previous government, they had a lot of injunctions. The president is not doing what is right. But this particular president was favorable to them. Told them, I'll fund you, I'll give you a judicial fund. So I suspect, I'm not sure, pay the same, tell you guys, I'm giving you funds. Pia nyinyi chezani kama nyinyi sinawapatia pesa. Kama nawapatia pesa ule jamaa mwingine.
Is that extortion?
Maybe, you see. So it's now trying to put them on the box. And tell you what, guys, I did this for you.
Yes.
So please play ball. And if you don't play ball, you have seen even probably the finance bill. The people who put an injunction, you're transferred. The right people.
Are you gonna bring up the COB issue? Controller's budget. Finish up your points.
I still don't understand my conviction.
Yeah.
But I'm just giving a scenario of what's happening.
Yes.
And I'm giving probably this could be what is happening.
Yeah.
It's not probably from a personal perspective.
Oh, yeah.
But it's an aspect of like, remember, I brought you Nini. Make sure you do this for me. So it's a give and take aspect because of the favor I'm really doing to you.
Yes.
Because I was really thinking if Maraga was maybe the CJ, probably, what could I have done differently? But I usually say everybody has his own leadership style. Everybody has his own way of looking at it. But I think we need somebody who's really firm and effective to the government on the face. If what you're doing is unconstitutional, no matter what structures you put on board, I think you should do what is right to the Kenyans.
Okay.
Yes.
Asim.
Yes.
I know you.
I've tried to compromise.
Dr. Fred was very kind, and he said as much as there is that economic benefit and proposition for the housing levy and the benefits that you mentioned, still it doesn't make sense. But it's been brought up that we have a larger issue regards to finding solutions, since our discussions are solution oriented, and this issue of just living within our budget as a country. Operating within our budgets, running lean. It seems to be, it was the talk of the town during the campaigns period. And now it seems that once you get into that office and you realize, wow, this place it has an AC. I need an extra AC in this place, yeah? And my brother's gonna supply that AC, you start creating a whole ecosystem that it's given this perspective that people in government or in leadership are sort of living in a bubble that they're not feeling what majority of Kenyans are feeling. Is it time for a reality check in regards to living within our means as a country and budgeting around it?
Perhaps the truth is that we're going through a hard times, economical crisis, sort of. And things are tough. Almost the whole world, yeah. But particularly to Kenya, us the people who are, on the side of the Kenya Kwanza team, who are still, pleading for more time for us to work. And we said, there is a say in my culture which goes that, at the beginning things might get tough before it gets better. So I'm going to stick to that. On the reduction of the expenditure, that is the government officials' expenditures, the president himself, acknowledged it that, because we are going through a hard time when it comes to the economic times, he said he's going to cut down the cost of the cost of traveling abroad. That is for all the government officials, and it was there in the public domain. It was gazetted that there is this number of officials who are allowed to go out of the country for this specific period of time. In a year, an official is allowed to go out only on some stipulated timelines. And even the president himself cut down his expenditure in going abroad. I don't want to say he said I won't be going out. There was a budget cut. Yeah,
it's very difficult. It is very difficult to defend this, but
it was stipulated.
The gentleman has been on the move, and
we
saw the
delegation
around COP28. We saw the numbers coming out. It is not only in Kenya.
Yeah.
In Africa, was it Gabon? There was sort of an uproar because the president's family, all of it was in COP28, and the question was in regards to living, that practicality, what we're discussing here, even in ethics, the practical bit and the theory bit, because it seems the government is talking from both ends of the mouth.
Yeah.
Yes, this is what is happening, but reality we don't see it. Finish your point before I invite.
You know, like for example, on the COP28 thing, I think Kenya delegation went to the United Arab Emirates. I mean, it was around 714, if I'm not wrong, which I mean comprises of organizations and government officials. You know, there were some organizations, you know, NGOs and some registered organizations here in Kenya, especially those who are from the environment side, who funded themselves. So when the number came out, you know, it comprised all the government delegation and the organization delegation, which gave out the negative, I mean, you know, report. But to my case, I'm still firm. I'm sticking to you know, we're still on the budget and the government officials.
Yes.
As you mentioned, you know, we don't expect when they say let us cut down the cost of I mean transportation or going out. We don't expect them to not. I mean, we don't expect the president not to go abroad. I mean, he has to make deals. He has to sign treaties. He has to be there for grants and loans. You know,
yes.
And even here within, we expect Gachagua to visit different parts of the country. And
yes.
We want. I mean, we cannot allow him to travel just like an ordinary citizen. He has to have that. I mean, convoy a little bit of it. I mean, the point is that we're giving solutions. And I invite my good friends here, the professors, as well to, I mean, give us the solution, like give it in the public domain. I mean, we are free to
exactly. You say you invite for MP in
Njoro constituency.
In Njoro constituency, yeah.
Sure.
I think I need to buy an MP now.
And this is the point, because even some of the pointers that you brought up. For example, just the SATU loan I've picked at the FRN. You know, we cannot allow our president to travel or our deputy president to travel a particular way. I don't know whether you saw a certain pictures trending of a convoy. If you a piece, I think, is average 15 to 18 million a piece.
Mm-hmm.
And there are like 10 of them 15. And you look at that road, I mean, just one of those cars can do the work. Now, I know that is altruistic in a way, in a sense, but in terms of solution and thinking about what this young leader is proposing, do we have hope, first of all, for the future and change based on NASA's perspective? And what can we do different? Prof, then I come to you.
Yeah. First of all, the future is bright because, first of all, to have him on the show is a beginning, and I'll invite him to join Linda Jamii.
Yes.
We have some processes on which we can be able to at least understand our values because we have very strong values. And I'm sure that, Asek, you are very welcome to join Linda Jamii. We work together. I believe that we can transform this country, and also the strong values that my brother has. They say value stronger than steel. That is how Tata Chemical says it. Now go to the point on the issue of the house levy and the travel of the president and the economy. I think that the MPs in this country messed us big time because we have MPs who are more artists, lawyers, actors, populists, but very few economists. Because you saw they are struggling for their CDF. They are being told the country is broke, you cannot get the CDF, isn't it?
Yes.
But then the people pass the Finance Act. And I told them in Parliament through my memorandum that if you pass this act, we'll collect less revenue, and therefore it will affect you. It's called in Solomonic economics, wisdom of fools. When they were passing the Finance Act, they were pleasing the president. So they are wise that time.
Yes.
Now they are fools now when they're being told by President Njuguna Njumu that we don't have money even for your CDF. So, of course, forget even the issue about the unconstitutional nature of CDF. We just focus on that one. So I think the MPs are not doing us a favor. Just like, for example, if the parliament if the judiciary has failed, like I've told you,
yes,
parliament has failed, executive, of course, they have all failed, isn't it? Now, we are having State House as the fourth arm of government, isn't it?
Yes.
Where they can print anything, they can do that. I'm not looking at these issues as being a Ruto issue. I'm looking at this issue that Kenya needs to go through a serious reform, isn't it? and the serious reforms in our judiciary system, legislature system,
yes,
governance system, and put up the right structure so that I don't like debating people, Gachagua, all this. Let's talk about what is it that our kids can inherit from us and can do.
All right.
Remember, if we like institutions and institutionalize the right behavior, things will work. So solution here is, the issue is none of those people. The issue is, how can you institutionalize right behavior? Is there a limit for how many cars you can buy? Is there a limit for your budget that you can be able to use? Is there a limit for government expenditure? Some countries is a limit. For example, Singapore put a limit on how much can you put in recurrent expenditure. Ours is more than 80% recurrent expenditure, means there's no money for development. Mm-hmm. And when there's no money for development, there's no education, there's no healthcare. For example, the changing of NHIF to SHIF, isn't it? Mm-hmm. That change has not changed what we want. That is called cosmetic change. 75% of the premium you pay for NHIF goes to paying recurrent expenditure or operating expenses. Only 25% goes to medicine and treatment. That needs to be changed. There must be system structure how to do that. Then they show the housing levy. I've heard them, and I like this. In the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza, they mention Singapore as a benchmark. I'm also happy in Azimio, they equally mention Singapore as a benchmark. And I was on live television telling people that there's no different manifesto between Kenya Kwanza and Azimio, because I took the two manifestos and put them in a software called Turn It In, and they were 98% similar. So whatever Kenya Kwanza said is not anything significantly different from Azimio. Now, because they gave Singapore as a benchmark, why don't they execute with Singapore also? Because Singapore solved the housing issue not by house levy. They just gave tax incentives to anybody wanting to build a house to make house construction attractive. So I'm asking the president, withdraw the house levy, come with the tax incentives to allow construction materials to be cheaper, affordable, isn't it? Allow the training for people who are doing, for example, vocational training on the issue of house construction.
Yes.
Put more money on people who can be able to do structural engineers, civil engineers. This will just give birth to a good housing economy. You don't have to do much.
Okay.
Kibaki never gave people handouts to go to school. He just made free primary education, isn't it?
Yes.
So then another thing is that if we want to praise Singapore, let us take the penicillin Singapore swallowed, because you cannot tell me, I want to be like Singapore, then I tell you, okay, swallow this pill. No, I don't want that pill. But you cannot be Singapore if you can't swallow the pill they swallowed. And the government being broke for me here, I think that what is important here, that everything is getting into trouble here because that overtaxation, the depreciating shilling, which for now, you know, Noah, that any time the shilling loses a value by 1 shilling, we add 40 billion to our debt book without borrowing a single bob. This how serious is. If you ask me as a solution, the president needs to go quickly and lower taxation, give some stimulus to the economy. The shilling needs to stabilize very quickly, revise the interbank rate, because the interbank rate being at 11 means there's no money in circulation. And when there's no money in circulation, Kenya shilling means that the dollar will continue doing very well against the Kenya shilling. And according to me, this needs to be urgent, because imagine, since he took office when the dollar was 120, now it is 157, we have added 1.8 trillion to the debt book without borrowing a single bob, which means taking the dollar back to 120, which looks like we have gained 1.8 trillion to the debt book, which for me is urgent.
Okay.
Then just to mention the issue of travel, the president has done his 45th international trip in 1 year. 45th. Now, I'm concerned for the following reasons. Noah, you mentioned today is Friday, isn't it? There are only 52 Fridays in a year, isn't it? Because we have 52 weeks in a year. So if someone is traveling 45 times in a year, means that, and if there are 52 weeks in a year, it means that he has been away for nearly 45 weeks, isn't it? Now, when he's away, he goes with very many people. Like, for example, in COP28, there were 400 government officials with him. When do you sit down to implement your policies? And I even wrote the article which I talk about the issue connected to the issue of climate change and COP28. I told you that the what failed. In governance, there's what we call 40-20-40 rule, whereby before any meeting you do, you need to spend 40% of your time preparing, then 20% of your time in that meeting, then 80% on the action point after the meeting. So in Nairobi, the climate summit, we never prepared. That's why there was chaos. Some people were not invited. Some people were exited from it. And then the declarations were done. This guy never prepared even what to read as a declaration. That's why in COP28, it was not considered, it was a joke. In fact, no country was committal to any of the Africa Climate Summit that they came out with, because everybody came and read their speeches. For example, everyone from Sudan, the president of Sudan came and read his, and he went live in Sudan. So people in Sudan saw he was there.
Yes.
Then Kagame read his, different from the one that Ruto read.
Okay.
So everybody read their speeches written by our sister, and there was no coordination on a unified summit statement. So that's why COP28 looked at it and said, oh, this was a joke, and threw it away. Now, after that climate summit, the president continued traveling with his team and moving around. They have never sat down to execute those things. Maybe they never prepared a declaration to be sent to COP28, and therefore, again, he went there and made the speech he made in COP28 was good, but very different from what was said in Nairobi. Mm-hmm. So what I'm trying to say here is that the president just needs someone who can really organize his office, even if he means well. The execution of your intentions are key.
Okay.
You can have good strategic intention, but very bad execution.
Okay, definitely. Paul?
Great. For me, I think I'll take three approaches. The first one, I think one of my good friends and mentor, Eddie Njoroge, he was the Kenyan CEO, says, don't cut on expenses, create more money. So what are different ways of creating more money? So if you can't create more money, reduce expenses. So as much as we're reducing expenses, what are creative ways to get money and improve money? If you feel like your salary is little, why don't you look for multiple streams of revenue?
Yes.
And that we're able to enjoy. So I think that's one thing we're able to look for. Mm-hmm. And I think we have so many opportunities as a country where we have potential of land which is untapped. Mm-hmm. So that's something we can be able to look at. And with economists like Fred Agola, I was hoping he'd tell us, because economics is how do we create wealth and information. Tell us this is how we can create wealth. So I think we can also look at it from that particular perspective. Secondly, as a country, and maybe probably in Africa, we have a culture we call one big man syndrome. So it's allowed this guy, and it's something that we felt during elections. This guy has to come, he has to give money, you have to shout for them. So I think the change of culture, maybe I don't know whether from an electoral perspective, but as a country we need to change that particular perspective, to make it not a life and death issue, and also not really invest so much in terms of what comes around it to create that man to feel like he's a demigod. If this guy does not win, like it's a done deal. So I think we need to change that particular culture, and it's not about only one person is able to be elevated at a particular level. Okay. If you give a conversation like the Scandinavian countries, you're an MP, you're even a minister, you can be on the road. No one really cares what you're able to do. But because of the things we've been able to invest in, that has been able to change. So I think it's something we really need to look at the country as a country and how can we invest on that. Thirdly, I think I'm looking from a perspective of values where we began. And I think there are three ways we can build values. We usually say one is education. That's why we have in terms of KCP and everything. So what can we do? Our teachers, what are the values that we can inculcate to our students? So the value has been a very key thing as a nation. So if you look at the values for students in terms of just coming, being punctual in class, how you dress, how honest are you with the responses you're able to do, I think that's very critical. Number two is our socialization. I love Israel in the sense of they inculcate a value of what you call chutzpah.
Yes.
It's a confidence you can be able to, you can win anything in the world. So you meet an Israeli after they're finished. And I think maybe that's why maybe the idea about NYS came in. How do you inculcate a value like by the time you leave school, you're so confident you can conquer anywhere in the world. So an Israeli who is 18 years old can lead an entire military or a mission by themselves. Here, an 18-year-old, you still feel I'm not good enough. Mm-hmm. You're out of campus, you feel I'm not good enough to lead even a small group of people. So it's something that really need to inculcate in our values. Finally, I think this is what really built me up. Growing up, I really enjoyed during the Moist time. We really had particular values. We had what you call, I grew up, I went to Tigoni primary. I went to two schools, Tigoni and Gatumaini. And one of the things I really enjoyed during those classes that really inculcated values in us is what we call pastoral care programs. Mm-hmm. These are programs that inculcate indirectly values that you need to expose, maybe through the Bible or through wherever, depending on your religious affiliation.
Okay.
That really helped a lot in terms of organization. So if the government would help that, people realize there's something bigger than just exams, there's something bigger than just being an MP. I believe I don't have to be the president of this country to make a difference. You know, what can I be? Can I be the best person who I can be? And this the country can really, really change. Okay. And that is what the values are able to do. So if you decide this is the values that I'm embodied, I want to embody, that will be the difference we make in this country.
Okay. Hey.
So that's
your take. Definitely. Thank you very much. Hey, my people. This has been a good morning. I've just enjoyed myself. I've had a lot of fun. I've learned a lot about ethics and whatnot. But gentlemen, now we are about to put a full step to it. I know you guys are very, very wise people. There is Solomonic wisdom at the center. There is Danielic wisdom at the side, and there is Asabic wisdom at the end. All these wisdoms very critical. But as we finish up, I think as we clear the week, you've heard of this, gentlemen, and quickly just give me your feel of it. What you understand by this briefly, no matter how hot your anger may be, it cannot cook. No matter how hot your anger may be, it cannot cook anything. Asap, as you go to the weekend, what is your parting shot? Briefly, in a second.
All right, on that matter, anger, it's I don't want to make it a big issue because I got philosophers and professors here. We'll make it a big issue, but the bottom line is that no matter in as much as how anger can get far from you, it can never add you anything. If you do anything because of anger, there is nothing you can achieve out of it because you're under that influence of provocation.
Okay.
And
thank you. You must be a politician. So, since you vied for the Njoro MP, I know utauza sera saizi, but at time we have very few seconds. Prof, what do you make of it?
So for me, what it means is that, in fact, even if you have anger, you can even add passion. That even if you are very passionate or you are angry about something, it's not going to help you, but what you need to do is get into action. For example, all that Kenyans are angry about, what are they doing about it? Okay. It's not about how angry you are. We cannot compete on who is the most angry person in the country.
All right.
And that's what it's about, questioning the leadership of some people who are really telling Kenyans, let us focus on what you as a leader can offer as a solution.
Okay.
Because just being angry is not enough.
It's not enough.
We have to take action about what we are doing.
Exactly. Paul?
Well, I think for me, I would agree. Being angry is really good because it makes you realize you are not what we call indifferent. You understand with the real. Jesus was angry. Everyone gets angry if you're really to yourself. But I think as a leadership expert, I usually tell people there's something called emotional intelligence.
Okay.
Is understand I have this anger, but how do I manage it to leverage on it to make things work for everyone?
All right.
So I think that's what we're able to share in terms of my perspective.
Gentlemen,
thank you.
what a day, man. What a day. Just greet each other at least so that we leave here knowing that we are ethically doing well. But thank you very much. And thank you to you for journeying with us throughout the 3 hours that you've had this morning. What a Friday. It started on a high and maintain it on that gear. Just continue adding it a little bit slow even as we go to the weekend. My name is Noah Kipkimbo. That has been Morning Prime for you. Have yourself a good day, because you're a blessed man and woman, whatever you are. All right, that's it. Bye. There we go. Gentlemen.